Good morning, church family and friends, Reverend Spivey and Sister Lisa, Franklin, Uncle John, and other family members. It's an honor to be here to speak about Brother John. I had the honor, along with some of our youth members, and back in 1964, General Baker, Max Stanford, Lou Tripp, we all went to Cuba that year, and we met the Williams family. John was about 14, as I recall, and the Cuban government had given their family political asylum, and they were well treated in Cuba. And for the first time, John and his brother were able to swim in an integrated swimming pool, to go to an integrated school. They didn't have to worry about drive-by shootings from the KKK or trying to organize self-defense to protect themselves from the government in North Carolina that said they were going to lynch the whole family. And John experienced 2 revolutions, at least. But he lived as a youth in the boarding homes, boarding schools in Cuba and in China. And he met with the great revolutionary leaders of those countries. And he was imbued with a revolutionary spirit of service. That's what the revolution meant, is to give service to the little folks, to lift up the little people of the world. And that's where he learned about what real democracy was, or should be. Now, upon his return to Detroit, to the United States, and especially to Detroit, he said he had a spiritual awakening. Now, he also told me that he was very disappointed when he came back because he was expecting a great deal more unity among us in the black community and our families and our communities. And that was a great disappointment. But in spite of that, he felt the call to walk where Jesus walked. And Jesus walked in the hood. He walked on the highway, the back streets and the highways, and where the people were downtrodden and laying out in the street. Didn't have access to power, didn't have access to basic services, struggling for survival. That's where Jesus walked, and that's where John decided that he wanted to walk and serve. And he served in Southwest Detroit and Cass Corridor, and lifted up the elders, he lifted up the youth. And he had a special desire to serve and to call on and to lift up the social justice activists in our community, to bring them to God, and to show them the relationship between the political struggle and the spiritual warfare that we need to be involved in. And he saw that many of those of us who started out in the struggle with the motivation of anger and rage, that didn't last long in many cases. But those who were inspired with the calling of God, we became long-distance runners. And that's the type of life that John lived, and I was one of those who he inspired. And he remains a lighthouse in my spirit. He brought me closer to God. Even when he was in the midst of misery and suffering, he was still lifting us up, servicing the little people. Thank you, John. God bless you. Amen.